Iowa State! Iowa State!
Can you guess who we're cheering for this weekend?
I know, the Hawkeyes and the Cyclones.
You know, yep. We don't want to offend any of our
No.
Hawkeye or Panther or Bulldog,
Right,
viewers, but
right.
we happen to be in Cyclone country.
We
so,
do, like
yeah.
right in the heart of
Part
Cyclone
of it. Yes,
country.
I think there's a stadium like just down the street.
We could almost see it from our office.
Almost, yes. So I'm
You
kind of
are.
dressed in advance.
You are, and
Yes.
I totally blew it.
Yeah, forgot.
Sorry.
Because as we've told you before, we don't do a lot of practice. with
Right,
this.
right. So our outfit coordination team
Yes.
did not prepare us.
I know, they didn't. It's not their reminder.
I know what I was thinking last year. If you will look back a year, we were actually at the stadium.
We were tossing the football around.
Tossing a football around, saw some of the Cyclone football players and things like that.
Yeah.
And we just couldn't count on it because it's been raining so much here that we really were like, okay, I don't know if they'll let us come in to
Right.
that place. But
Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. So we're ready for Saturday. I hope
We
you guys are
are,
too. So we're
yeah.
hoping that it won't get rained out.
No,
Won't
I
be a
think,
soggy field.
I know. Hopefully things are drying up for
I
the
hope
field
so.
and everything
Yes.
else. Because
It
we
hasn't
have-
rained in the last at least 4 hours. So
I know, maybe.
that's a trend. I don't know. But
I know. So
yeah, we're
hopefully
kind of tired of it.
we are kind of tired of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
We
So-
like some rain, but we also like it to dry up a little bit and have some sunshine.
I know.
'Cause we
So
don't live in Seattle.
We don't. We don't. We live in Iowa. Yeah.
Iowa.
Yeah.
I
So
know.
Cyclone country.
Yes.
We're an egg state.
We are an ag state. We
Yes.
have. I always laugh because people don't have a ton of traffic unless you're going between Des Moines and Ankeny during rush hour.
Oh my gosh.
But other than that, even when you're doing that, you
Yeah.
still are looking at bean fields, corn fields, hay
Exactly.
fields. A lot of there's no mountains, so it's flat. It is seas of green.
Flat until you get to the coasts of Iowa.
Yes.
I always say when you get to the east side and the west side,
Then
when you
you-
get close to the
right.
rivers, and it gets a little hilly because I grew up in kind of the hilly part of western Iowa.
Oh right.
Yeah, so over by Denison.
Oh yes, and then
I'm from
yeah,
Schleswig.
yes,
Everybody knows
and
where Schleswig is.
Schleswig,
Yeah.
good German
Look,
town.
it is a very good German town.
Schleswig.
Yes.
We were talking. That'd actually be fun to speak German because other languages are languages of love or whatever. Right?
Yes.
I think German, you're just like
We're
like,
just tough
tough.
people.
We are tough.
We're very hardy farmers.
hardy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of
Yeah.
farmland in that area, a lot of farmland around town,
Yeah.
around Ames, surrounding the area. So yeah, so buying out in the country, what's that like?
Right. It's a lot different than I think people think.
I think it is too.
I think it's kind of a, you talk about the American dream, buying a house. And I
Mhm.
think some people, their dream is to have like land with their house.
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
I think too, we have a lot of veterinarian people, like I think we
Mhm.
just have that, they grew
How-
up on a farm,
Right.
maybe. I
Right.
just want an acre.
Yeah,
or
I want,
two or
I want a
10.
hobby
I
farm.
want a hobby farm.
Yeah, I want a couple of goats, a couple of chickens.
Yeah.
Even though you can have chickens in town now, which
I
is
know it's kind of weird, but
weird,
you can.
but you can.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you want to have a little hobby farm. Are you really prepared for that?
Yeah, so I think what's kind of funny is that the things you don't think about,
Mhm.
so you're going to need more than just your push lawnmower.
Yeah, we're going to need a riding lawnmower,
Yes, and snow removal.
snow removal.
You might need more depending on what your job is.
Yes.
If you work from home, fabulous. If you
Yes.
don't, if you live on a gravel road,
Mhm.
depending when that snowplow comes through,
Right,
you might be late to work, or you better have a little
a
tractor
blade on
or
front of your pickup.
and not just your lawnmower, but your pickup.
But your pickup, yeah, exactly.
Because sometimes we get a lot of snow, and it
Mhm.
takes a bigger machine and a bigger
Exactly.
blade to get that. So you
Exactly.
can go to work.
So your accessibility, also your utilities.
Yes.
Yeah, you're on a septic system. You're not, on
You're
public.
not public.
Yeah, so that
sewer.
there's a lot of things that go on with that. So when you buy, for time of transfer, the seller has to do a septic inspection.
Yes.
So if you're selling it, that septic has to be inspected.
Right, and if there is something not right with your
Mhm,
septic
right.
system, you have to make it right and up to code
Exactly.
before you can sell that property. Typically.
Typically, yes. And if you are a family of 8,
Yes. You,
And-
you want a really good septic system.
you want a good septic system. And you're thinking of, this is the house I can build onto.
Yes.
Okay, that's going to affect your septic system because the septic system has to be so large based on number of
square feet.
square
right?
feet,
Or
bedrooms,
something,
or
yeah.
something like that. It's based on that. So number of people. So that could affect the size of septic tank you're going to need.
Good. How many people come over for Christmas? I don't know.
Right. And if you're on well water or you
rural.
can have rural water.
Yes,
So
and
yeah.
sometimes you have. I know that there's some acreages that have a well,
Mm-hmm.
but they cap them or do something because now
Yes.
rural water has come into the area.
Right.
So I know, like we're on rural water, even though we live in the country. We still have our well going because cattle. We don't want to pay for rural water for all the
Right.
cattle
No,
and
that's all
everything.
expensive.
Yeah, it's kind of nice water for our cattle. Not that we don't love our cattle. But a lot of if you're just an acreage, either that, and if you have a well, then testing the water.
Testing the water. Yep, that has to be tested as well. So, and even if you're just going to use that well water for outside work, it's still at time of transfer that well water does have to be tested. Yep.
So that is it's an expense, and then as you buy the house, if something were to happen with the well or the well, some wells have been around for a really long time. So if it goes bad, you have the choice of then even figuring out how to get rural water, which is a cost, or replacing that well.
Exactly.
Which
So
is a cost.
It is a cost. Did I ever tell you my grandfather dug wells?
No.
Yes. Yep. He dug wells back in the early days.
Early days?
Yes.
When that's what everybody had.
And yes, and he dug them by hand.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
He was buff.
He was buff, yes. So he dug a lot of wells over in the Charter Oak area, I guess. So yeah.
That's interesting.
Very fascinating. So he could wick for water also.
Wick? What is wicking for water?
Okay, so you
don't know
take
what that
this
is.
like triangle type stick and he holds it and he can find where there's water.
Oh, I thought that was like a myth.
No, he could do it.
Really?
We tested him. Yep, absolutely. At holidays and stuff, we'd say, oh, come on, Grandpa, you can't find where the water lines are. He could.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. So.
Did anybody else in your family pick that up? Did they have that
no.
gift? Oh.
I think it kind of ended with him.
Right?
Yeah. Of course, he was kind of a prankster too.
Oh.
But seriously, he could do it.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was very cool. So, but yeah, and there's other things too. If you're going to have several acres,
yes,
you'll want to have a survey done. You want to make sure you're, not, planting your crops or fencing off for your goats or something on somebody else's land. You want to make sure where those survey lines are.
Because it's different when you buy an acreage. So when you're buying in town, there's pins, right?
Lot
pins. And when you're buying an acreage, a lot of time you don't have those lot pins, or they're like, oh yeah, well, right? Oh yeah, well I know somewhere right around here.
That tree,
the oak tree.
That tree's been there for 40, 50, 60 years. That tree has probably grown in size.
Right.
So
it might be on somebody else's property now.
Right. So you want to make sure with a survey exactly where your lines are, and if there's any easements, if anybody has any easements onto your property to access theirs.
Right, or something like shared. Sometimes there's a shared well
a
shared driveway, or a farmer might have access to your driveway that goes into your acreage, but they have access or an easement to it for their machinery, maybe to go into their field.
Yep, there's a lot of things to consider. Is any of the land in forest reserve?
Yes, that's kind of it, because you can't do you buying it, but you don't get to do anything with it.
Right.
And if you want to, you have to get their permission.
Yes, exactly. So
because
that's a whole
I think about like a tree falls down.
Oh yeah.
Right? Like a tree falls down and it falls into your yard, but it's in the forest reserve. So you don't get to just
take it out.
Take it out, right? You have to get permission and things like that.
And there's also conservation CRP
ground.
Yeah. What's that called again?
Yes, we always just call it CRP ground, but it's to basically protect your creeks and things.
Yeah, it's Conservation Reserve Program. So if there's any CRP land on that acreage too. So there's a lot of things to consider when if you've never purchased an acreage before, never lived in the country, you think it's going to be a great thing, which it could be.
It could be really great, but it's not maybe as romantic and this great idea, like, oh my gosh, there's no lights, I'm going to be able to walk out and see the stars at night.
You will see more stars. I will guarantee that. Absolutely.
But you're also going to have to get up in the morning and move the snow to get out of your driveway. So
yeah, exactly.
Another thing you have to consider is how big that acreage is. And so I know that a lot of people want to buy, they're buying. So 10 acres is no problem most of the time, as long as it's pasture ground and things like that. When you start talking about that your acreage has some tillable acres in it, then that starts affecting your financing for that acreage, because we are not, when you're doing a mortgage, we're not buying farm ground. That's a whole different loan to buy farm ground than to mortgage a property.
Okay.
And so there is percentages that can only be tillable. And there's also different things like if there is a working cattle shed on the property, again, that's just a different ag program maybe than just a mortgage. And so we're not livestock, 400 head of cattle, right? Yep, that's probably not going to go along with your mortgage,
right?
Because that's also income producing.
And so it's also to use a USDA loan.
Yes. So on a USDA loan so you can buy that house with 100% financing or buy that acreage on the USDA loan, which is awesome. It's just that there's no income producing things when you do that. So you can't, even if there's a great Morton building, right, on that place, or Lester building, or whatever kind of building is on there. And you're like, oh my gosh, I would always want to start my business, right? I'm an auto person, right? I'm
body
getting
shop
my body shop
Yep.
there. That takes you out of kind of that USDA loan, because now it's an income producing building.
Good to know.
But you can do all kinds of other loans. It doesn't take you out of a lot of other different types of loans.
Exactly. So, well, buying an acreage is fun. But
it is.
Might be a little bit more things to consider.
Yes.
Yes, from just the lifestyle and for how you purchase it from a loan standpoint.
Right. And I think sometimes when you buy an acreage, sometimes the houses haven't been updated depending on the acreage.
Yes, true.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so you also utilities and things like that, or upkeep of a house like that.
Absolutely.
Can be different.
You can. So. And how long it takes for the EMTs to get to you if there's a fire, if there's an ambulance need too. So you want to kind of consider all those things.
Because you're working with a volunteer, which there's amazing volunteer. Like I love everybody that volunteers for the EMTs and the fire stations, but your insurance is higher on the house also, just because you're in that volunteer area instead of a metropolitan area.
Exactly. Because we have a fire station just
you got 3 or 4 of them,
here.
right?
Right. We're not in the country, not so much. So lots of things to consider. Love the people that love to live out in the country. They, it's a very peaceful lifestyle.
It is. And I always say I have a 42-mile commute, and it takes me 41 minutes.
Oh, hey, that's very cool. So she's a country girl. I'm a city girl, and don't put me on the farm. Grew up on one, but that was okay.
You just put your coveralls on over your dress clothes. You go do a few things, and you just take off your coveralls, and you're ready for work.
Yeah. We're like that Marie Osmond song, a little bit country,
a little bit rock and roll.
A little bit rock and roll. So whatever. But anyway, everybody have fun this weekend, and I hope your team wins, which means the Cyclones.
Right. Go Cyclones.
All right.
Go Hawkeyes, or go
Panthers
or
Bulldogs. Yes, and wherever you're at. And I know I have a big LSU fan in my
repertoire.
In my repertoire of friends, and so I hope his team wins too, I guess.
Yes.
I don't know much about LSU, but
we will be rooting on the Cyclones.
Yes, absolutely.
So we hope for a good victory.
Yeah, absolutely. So enjoy your weekend and hope it's dry.